Good evening, Blood Bowl fans, and welcome back to the second episode of Season 7 for Rebel Divisions 1, 2, and 3. I am, of course, Superfed TV, and I will be covering this episode today by myself. I had a last-minute scheduling change, so it's not necessarily my co-host's fault. I just had to switch it up in order to meet your guys' demand of getting this out in a timely manner. I do want to try to get this out. I'm just probably going to be on Thursdays, but this Thursday I just had to have something come up, and I'm getting it out a day early. But going forward, you guys can plan on seeing it up around Thursday, around midnight at the latest. And then if not, then you can start bugging me. But try not to bug me before then. So we are going to pick up right where we left off, starting with Division 3 first. This is going to be more of the traditional format for what we can expect to see. A couple teams getting highlighted, going over the match results, talking about the next week's upcoming matches, and then we are going to be doing something new that I've kind of already previewed in the Discord a little bit. We're going to be checking the TV plots and kind of seeing how those graph out and track basically throughout the season. So without further ado, let's go ahead and jump right into it. Division 3 had some exciting matches, although overall a lot of ties. So we'll kind of go down the list here. Rebel Rousers played Please Don't Murder Me, the High Elf team, and it was a 2-2 draw. Not a whole lot of armor breaks on either side here. Looking at the statistics wise, an equal number of blocks, a couple knockouts, 0 Kaz in a game. I think the High Elves have got to be happy about that. Similar amounts of ball possession, just kind of an all-around even match. I think a lot more ones for the High Elves, so they probably rolled more dice, and that's probably why the humans were able to keep up with them. But that's an overall good result there for, I would say, well, going into it, I don't know who I predicted on that one, but that's a draw is not bad this early on in the season. Moving on to another draw. Dimension C137 versus the Skinky Island Boys. The Skinky Island Boys did suffer a death on a turn 16 foul of a Saurus. And it wasn't just any Saurus, it was a block one as well. So that's a bounty claimed. Actually, 2 bounties were claimed, I believe. One for a turn 16 foul, and then one was specifically on that Saurus by Kalisti Maya. Last season, we talked about this. Last season, these teams faced off week 1 as well. And the Lizards got the better of the Undead team this time around with a bunch of tackle. They were able to do a lot more work. 1 kill, 2 injuries, 4 knockouts. Just 4 knockouts for the Lizards. So, very bashy match considering how few blocks they actually gave Dimension C137. That's some decent results. Continuing on, looking at Necromantic Newbies versus the Lords of Decay, another 1-1 draw. In this case, looks like there was a death suffered by the Necromantic Newbies. I believe that was a Flesh Golem. Dice-wise, 45 blocks against the Skaven. 3 injuries inflicted on both sides, and then 1 death. So that was a little bit more bashy. Actually, considering only 16 blocks, I'm guessing there's some fouling going on here. No expulsions there, but for only 16 blocks to have 5 removals, that's pretty impressive. 7 armor breaks. Yeah, I'm gonna assume there's some fouling. Probably a safe bet. Moving on to the Big Green Weenies. This is our first actual win. They lost to Lebowski Urban Achievers. This one is quite a lot of blocks. It looks like 20 armor breaks for the Orcs, and they still lost. The Chaos team, only 34 blocks, but 4 injuries and 4 knockouts. So, looks like the armor rolls and the removal rolls were actually really good in favor of the Chaos team. And Chaos is usually something that Orcs can handle up until they start getting too much Claw and Mighty Blow, and it looks like the Orcs just got a little bit diced. Cenobite the Curb, another Chaos team playing another Orc team in a 1-1 draw. This one's a little bit more reasonable as far as armor breaks go. Let's see about the removals. Probably about average, actually. 60 blocks for the Chaos team. I think Orc is actually lucky to get away with as little damage as they got, although there was a kill here. Howl at the Moon played the Three Mountains, and this one I actually got to watch. I don't have any highlights for you. I will be trying to incorporate those highlights. The first half was pretty even. The Dwarves' armor was holding fine, and then all of a sudden, Rod, the werewolf on Howl at the Moon, went off on his Mighty Blow piling on spree. 7 removals, and could have clearly come away with just a dominating win, I think. But the Three Mountains almost ended up tying it, even with as many removals as they suffered. So it was closer than the casualties could have allowed there, but still, all in all, a great game. And there was a death in this one as well for the Necro team. And last but not least, not FDA approved, played the Scholarly Gentleman in a 3-0 convincing victory, but they did suffer a death. Quite a lot of death in Division 3 this first week. Only 34 blocks, but that was enough for them to get the job done. Decent amount of SPP gain there for those High Elves. So we are going to go ahead and take a look at 2 of the teams this week in this division. The 2 that we're going to be looking at are the Big Green Weenies, which is an Orc team that I'm not familiar with. I do know Orcs pretty well. And we talked about Havoc's team a little bit last week when we talked about every team. But when we do these reviews, we're going to usually spend about 5 minutes just kind of talking over the different developments on the team so far and if there was any progress. They lost their last game, we said, right? Yeah, to the Chaos team. They got pretty banged up there. And 2 of those Kazas, looks like, are going to be affecting their next game. This one is just a miss next game, so no serious damage to that Black Orc. And Tennis the Menace is also just missing a game. So no permanent damage to the team. I think they're still on track for some great development. A heavy amount of Mighty Blow, not a lot of tackle. Those are the things that jump out at me right at the start. Decent amount of guard. 5 guard is pretty good and solid. So they're going to be well equipped to play against the Bash teams here. But they are going to be really struggling against teams like not FDA approved or the Skaven team. What is it? Lords of Decay. Yeah, that's going to be a tougher match for them. Any Blodge ball carriers also are going to present a challenge. Really, it's up to the Slim Reaper to do all of the safety work. And those are pretty developed linemen. I actually don't like both these guys going block. I think one of them could have gone wrestle, one of them kick. Although you can always put kick as your second skill on a DP player if you don't want to immediately fire them. Assuming one of these doesn't get guard on a double next, I think they probably get fired. Although they also could be your kicker if you really wanted to hang on to them. But otherwise, development's not bad on this team. It is a throwerless team. There's no sure hands on here, so that is a big red flag for me. Again, you're already going to struggle against elf teams to have, and you know the value of strip ball because you actually got one. To not have a sure hands piece on your pitch with only agility 3 at the most is kind of asking for trouble. So I would prioritize either picking up a thrower, or if you're just morally opposed to the AV8 thrower, you really need to look at getting sure hands on one of these pieces. Maybe the strip ball, maybe that's kind of weird development. Maybe the guard piece, I don't know. It's gonna be tricky. You do have your killer close to leveling up, but that's not who you want your sure hands to be on. Killers get plenty of SPP on their own, so you're in an interesting position with that. And your next game's also going to suck, being down those 2 Black Orcs. I would say, got the money, pick up a thrower. Honestly, you know, you might not want to hear that, but that's my advice. Let's go ahead and move on to not FDA approved, and they are right here. This is the High Elf team that I predict to do very well this season. They've got amazing development. They've got the most valuable piece in the league, I believe. We never checked that, and you can feel free to fact check me on that. But Super Dragon 6000 with the 2 strength ups, the double Mighty Blow, and tackle and blodge. Great piece. I hope he lives to be legend, just not against me. Since he's in a different division, I don't mind seeing him make legend, but if he was in my division again, I would be trying to kill him actively. Beyond talking about that monster of a piece, we've got a Blod Sure Hands thrower, which is great, except he doesn't have a throwing skill on him. I do know that not FDA approved doesn't play the passing game as much as other high elf teams often do, so not a bad thing that he doesn't have accurate, although I would like him to take that next. If not accurate, then kickoff return. Even though it is a movement 6 piece, which isn't bad, kickoff return is still a great skill to have. Really helps limit the damage when you get blitzed for a kickoff event, or really helps you when you're trying to make your quick scores in 2-turn, 3-turn, 1-turn situations. So I definitely see the value in kickoff return for this team. The other star, which doesn't really get as much attention because of Super Dragon, is One More Night, an Agi 5 Leap Lodge Step catcher. Very good. Actually, way more SPP here. So you can see in the clutch, this is where the ball ends up more often than not. If you're playing against him, that's a piece you want to keep track of at all times. And his other catchers are starting to develop as well. One of them's probably going to get a level next match. I would assume that barring any injuries or just weird placements, this is going to be a priority for him to get a touchdown on. Probably going to get tackle next. You want to have at least 2 tackle on your high elf team. And then he's got the wrestle catcher that got guard. Too bad it wasn't on one of the block ones, but you'll take guard where you can get it. And I'm assuming he might even get leap on this. Leaping guard is so good on your elf teams. Your standard kick, wrestle, looks like he's niggled. That's a little rough. He's also got an armor bust here. You've got the money. I honestly would get rid of your armor busted one. I could see you making a case for keeping the niggled one. He's a kicker anyway. He's not even going to be on the pitch if you've got the extra bodies for it, although right now you don't. Yeah, I'd still get rid of him. Play with the loner. And that's going to be it for not FDA approved. So let's pop on over to the leaderboard. Not FDA approved with that win in first place, and it was a dominating win. Looking at the other 2 teams that won, Rumblebees, Howl at the Moon, and Sure Dogs, Lebowski Urban Achievers. Of these 3 teams, I could easily see 2 of them making it to the playoffs. Don't know about Lebowski Urban Achievers yet. I'm still saying that Chaos can struggle in this environment that they're in right now. So if they can show up and win big over Elves and Lizards and Skaven, then they will convince me that they definitely belong in one of those playoff spots. We'll see how the rest of the league goes. Even if you got a loss in your first week, 3 Mountains, Big Weenies, Scholarly Gentlemen, it is not out of the picture for you to still return and make it. And if you're in a tie, I'd say you're still in also right in the middle of the pack. Ties for the first 5 weeks are not necessarily a bad thing. They just aren't as good as wins. So if you are in a situation where you're forced to decide between scoring early and risking the loss or being safe and getting the tie, I personally play for that tie early on, but as the season ends, you need more wins, then you really got to push it. So something to consider. We're going to look at 2 matches that are going to happen this week. The ones that I think are going to be the interesting matches would be Howl at the Moon and Scholarly Gentlemen. I think the Chaos team is going to have just enough punch to come back at Rumblebee, and we'll see how he handles that. Personally, I'm going to pick Rumblebee to win this, but I think he might have a second death in 2 games, so it'll be a challenge for him to just kind of keep his value up there, keep his positionals and all that jazz. The other matchup that we're going to take a quick look at is going to be Skinky Island Boys versus the REBBL Rousers. Skinky Island Boys were dominating last season in Division 5. And I'm curious to see, after they played what was their toughest competition last season, to a draw, to see if they can keep their momentum going or if they are going to now be derailed now that they're facing a lot stiffer competition this season. In this matchup, I do still like the Skinky Island Boys to win, but REBBL Rousers are going to be one of their tougher challenges as well compared to their schedule last season. So that's going to wrap it up for Division 3. Good luck, coaches, and thanks for watching. Let's go ahead and move on to Division 2. again, a lot of ties. But some more. Well, I wouldn't even say convincing. At least everybody got on the board this division. There's a couple 0 points teams last division, but let's go through the results. So Oil Miners, they suffered a death, and they did score 18 armor breaks against the Wood Elves, but the fact that they took more deaths is pretty interesting for the Wood Elves to come up with that. Out of 35 blocks, that's actually a lot of blocks for Wood Elf team, but Live Tree or Die Hard does have a lot of skills to kind of allow them to make those blocks. A lot of wrestle, a lot of blocks, so not necessarily the worst thing for them to do that. 46 blocks that they're giving up, though, is quite significant, and you see that in the 4 injuries and 5 knockouts. Ultimately, though, doesn't matter. He still got the win, even with that 4 knockouts and 4 calves. So, well played, Live Tree or Die Hard. Mainland Rotters played Snovgard and won it 2-1 with 17 armor breaks, 49 blocks there. Actually, considering the amount of armor breaks, 17 armor breaks, only 4 knockouts and 3 injuries is, I would say, low. And it doesn't look like Snovgard was able to generate enough blocks, so I would say that they probably got out-positioned for some of the match, but still able to score. Get that development on those Chaos Warriors. Gotta love that. Let's take a peek and see what you got. Guard. Oh, very good. Very good. And moving on to Leafy Mustard versus Non-Anime Sports Team. A 1-1 draw here between the Lizards and the High Elves. 38 blocks to 24, a much cleaner game out of Non-Anime Sports Team. Not just throwing less blocks and getting more out of it, and with the 3 injuries, that's pretty sizable. But basically only giving up 38 blocks. If you can keep it under 48 blocks as an elf team, I think you're doing a pretty darn good job. Especially in these matches here. Against Lizards don't always get as many blocks as well, but a lot of times you're tempted to base them because the Source are so immobile. Fruity Kisses played, or no, sorry, I skipped my own match. Steve played my team, Brazzers. It was a 1-1 draw. Tough. I could have won it. I've made him roll some dice. He made the right dice at the right time and was able to get the draw, turn 16 with GFIs. My 1 die on the ball was Skull. Pushing the Skull. No dice. Block-wise, 65 to 59. We both were punching left and right, which is pretty standard for Necro Orc. But 3 injuries, 6 knockouts for me, 6 knockouts, 2 injuries for him. It was tough. It was a hard-fought match for sure. Curious to see how Steve does for the rest of the season. Fruity Kisses played Ace Trucking Company. And this was a fun match. I actually cast it on my Twitch channel if you want to watch it. Fruity Kisses always plays a unconventional game, which is entertaining at all times. And Ace Trucking Company with the Chorfs, he's punching up. And usually Chorfs are a team that wants to have the opponent get inducements, not spend inducements themselves. And so despite having a big TV gap there, they were able to keep it to a 2-2 draw. And they were down a blocker, one of their best blockers the whole time as well. So doing more with Hobgoblins unfortunately cost him 2 Hobgoblin lives. But great game. If you feel like checking out my Twitch channel, it's just Superfed TV. It's one of the last casts that are up there. Good entertaining match. Some good laughs, honestly. Just the turn 16 alone, I think, is worth it. Worth checking it out. Treat Kundo played Iron Madden 1-3-1. You don't need a lot of pieces to beat Gengar's team. You just need to be prepared to pay the toll. 26 armor breaks from 32 blocks. Give you a sense of how the fouls were going. 2 kills were inflicted. One of them was a loner, no big deal. The other one was a dodge lineman. A little bit more of a bigger deal. especially when you're down to like 5 pieces. So that's going to make it a little bit tougher here for Treat Kundo to get back into the swing of things. Only taking 18 blocks, only giving up 32. Again, keeping that under 40, that's great. And still being able to win 3-1 is even better. But you were against Khemri, and a Khemri team that doesn't play the ball on that. So we'll take this for what it is, a good win. Good job, coach. Keep it up. That's badly hurt. Yeah, just badly hurt on the tree. Rats Off to You played Typos Happen, and Rats Off to You won 3-2. I also got a chance to catch this game. The Orcs, I think, had a chance to win it. However, they failed to really keep control of the ball in possession, and then, you know, Rats doing 1-turn, 2-turn things, really quick scores. No removals at all for the Rats, and yet they were still able to pull off the win, so that's pretty solid. Yeah, I'd say that it's another good match to watch. I didn't stream that one, but I believe Golgothan streamed it himself, and it would be one I would recommend to check out as well. A lot to learn about both coaches. So that's going to do it for last week in recap. Let's actually go to the leaderboard first here. So a few more decisive games here, and a couple have been played week 2. We can ignore those for now, but to start, looks like Leafy Mustard, Treat Kundo, Rats Off to You, and Live Tree or Die Hard, and Mainland Rotters all starting off strong to get things going. And just the Oil Miners, Typos Happen, and Iron Madden, all with 1 loss and no other games played. So this week in review, we're going to be taking a look at Mainland Rotters first. Here they are. And they did already play their week 2 game, so we can briefly kind of talk about how that went. Obviously, there's some removals for missing next game here. But the big news here is this abomination. What was already a strength 5 Nurgle Warrior with block, who was just trying to level up all season long to get tentacles. Well, he's going to have to wait another season to get tentacles because he just rolled a 2nd strength up. And now we are looking at a freak of nature that could one day rival. And in fact, if I'm reading the value correctly, is that 230? Yeah, 230. Okay, so he's just a couple skills away from taking the most valuable piece title away from Super Dragon 6000. If he gets a double, I don't think he's going to take a double next, but if he gets tentacles next and then he gets a double to get dodge, I think that would put him in line for being one of the most valuable pieces. Crazy good luck to have that fortune of 2 strength ups on 1 Nurgle Warrior. Guy is going to be a freak once he gets tentacles. And so, barring that, if you look at the rest of the team, again, just a really well-developed Nurgle team. It's getting to the point where next season, regardless of how he does this season, as long as he keeps his pieces in play, if he doesn't do extremely well next season, or even, I would say, decent in the playoffs this season, gotta kind of wonder, man, because you were getting everything you want. Like, Nurgle at the high TV, that's where they really shine. Yeah, you got a nice frenzy piece with tackle. I love that. That's a good ball safety. Good threat there. Your killer, he does have a level up here. I would not like you to take piling on. I would probably say you lack guard. Yeah, I would definitely say you lack guard. In fact, after you get tentacles on both these guys, guard should probably be next. And then also guard on this guy when he gets his level next game, most likely. Everybody's so close to leveling up on your team. It's scary that you're gonna, by the time you play me, you're gonna be even stronger, and I am terrified of that. But I would probably not get piling on with your Nurgle Warrior. You want them standing, at least in my opinion. You've already got a piling on piece too, so yeah, I would probably skip that. Other thoughts on the team: your Rotters are clean. When you do level 1 up, get Dirty Player. That makes the most sense for your team. Everything else is just looking really crisp and sharp. Lodge, big hand, sure hands. That's also a great ball carrier. Just make sure you spread the love on the ball. So that's going to do it for the Mainland Rotters. The other team that we're going to cover today is Fruity Kisses, and this one, again, is one that we spent a bit of time on last week. Cherry Crush actually did stuff in a game. Got a couple removals, so hats off Cherry Crush there. Grape Fanta, I guess he said was a new addition to the team. He traded with another Dark Elf coach in order to get this piece. And so I'm just going to call you out. You got to make sure you use Strip Ball for what it is. Keep it off the line of scrimmage. Go after those plus strength Bull Centaurs, Black Orcs, Nurgle Warriors, whatever. If there's something that's carrying the ball that doesn't have sure hands, that should be your go-to piece here. Daisy is just phenomenal. Plus armor, plus strength. We always give you crap about the plus armor before the plus strength, but now that you've got them both, well, that's kind of good. And then the star of your team, Kiwi Kid. Strong arm, movement up, all the good stuff. The only thing I think you can arguably say you're missing is safe throw. So potentially you could get intercepted, and that would be bad. But you know the risks. You know what you're playing with. You've got the team for it. The team value, though, is definitely on the downward slide. I know you traded away some stuff, and you are probably more at risk now than you've ever been, at least in the last 2 seasons, of actually imploding. If you have a couple rough games in a row, which can always happen, this team could be a shell of its current self. So be careful. Don't overplay your hand. Otherwise, you'll be in a rough spot the rest of the season. And that will do it for Division 2. We have the 2 highlight games. So the games that I'm most looking forward to that have not yet been played are going to be Oil Miners versus Iron Madden. The Oil Miners are the killiest team last season. The dwarves that just punch and punch and punch. And Iron Madden is, as we know, Gengar's murder, foul first, what's a ball second kind of team. I expect blood. I expect deaths. With their bounties on the line, I really do expect this one to maybe even have 1 touchdown. Maybe. We'll see. I don't know. As far as predicting who wins, well, Oil Miners are probably more likely to go for the ball. Unless Iron Madden really just remove everything and want a Tomb Guardian touchdown, I think Oil Miners are going to win that one. And then the other match I want to take a look at is Treat Kundo versus Non-Anime Sports Team. Don't usually focus on the Elf Ball versus Elf Ball matchups, but this one's interesting to me because Non-Anime Sports Team is fairly well built for High Elves, but the Treat Kundo team has everything that they need to pull off an upset here. And I think it would be an upset for Treat Kundo, and I think I'm going to call them for the upset for Treat Kundo to win this one against Non-Anime Sports Team. I just think that it's going to come down to, obviously, who's going to fail the most dodges, but not just that. I think that the Wood Elves have just that slight movement advantage. I think that's going to come into play. A former Div 1 coach and Zork, I think, just is going to have that edge. So that's my prediction to win that one. And that will wrap up Division 2. Finally, we're going to move on to Division 1. Take a quick look at the matches that were played first week. Bloom and Zoom took on Necronomics in a match that a lot of people checked out and watched. The Super Bowl team took a shellacking. In terms of removals, it actually wasn't that bad comparatively. 3 injuries for one, 4 to the other. But the pieces that got removed, I think, were where the difference really lied. So I don't know that Horny Cricket could have really even won that one. That was pretty tough. But good 2-0 win for Fiction, my co-host, who's out this week. And he predicted that, so good on him. Cheese Tactics versus Eat Eat Man Things. NPA he was not in it to win it. He was pretty distracted, and we watched the game live. Unfortunately, he miscounted basically the turn one positioning of the ball, which led to a quick turnover for the Orcs. And from there, they just removed everything they could. Even with as few pieces as he could, Skaven were able to drum up a touchdown at the end there, but really at no point did it look like the Skaven were even in it. It just seemed like the Orcs were able to plow their way, punch their way through it. 25 armor breaks to 2 armor breaks, 12 blocks to 27. 27 blocks turned into 15 removals. That's a lot of fouls, a lot of piling on, a lot of work getting done. Just to confirm, that was 27 blocks, 25 armor breaks. That says a lot. New Year Norse took on the Booze Cruise. And the Norse team suffered a death, but just barely lost it. 48 blocks, but 9 removals, 10 removals from that, so that's pretty solid. About, I guess, what you would expect if you're going to give up 50 blocks. As a Norse AV7 team, you're probably going to have a fair number of removals there. But even with those removals, they put up a valiant defense. They just really weren't able to keep the ball, as the possession there denotes. Not a lot of SPP gain there either, but they're already a pretty bloaty Norse team, so they're not hurting for anything with that SPP gain. Tadpoles in the Big City took the win over the Saskatoon Shiners. 27 armor breaks. That's pretty significant. How many blocks is that? 47. So the Skaven definitely were giving up some hits there, which looks like were mostly KOs that probably came back a couple times. And they did pay the price of a death. Getting that REL 1 welcome. Pastry Pest took on the Knights Who Said Knee, and Mistage was able to get a draw out of the former Super Bowl winner. 35 blocks at 32. This is what I expect to see in a match like this. Everybody making their blocks carefully. 3 removals. Not too bad. Didn't look like there was anything too serious there in terms of damage or permanent damage to the team. Men in Tights lost to Animal Farm. This is great news for Sace. Being able to beat one of the agility teams early on in the season is going to be exactly what he needs to do in order to make the playoffs this season. So he was able to do it with only 31 blocks, being able to remove 12 players. It's very solid. Excellent ball possession and control. In fact, the Wood Elves only had the ball for at the end of 1 turn. So they pretty much dominated and controlled that one. At least from the stat line. I didn't watch it, so I can't say that for sure. And then US Sulaco played New Day Co-op. A 1-1 draw. I think Eisen Mike was going to be very happy to have that. Unfortunately, MVP on Pharaoh does not help out at all. And Kool-Aid coming back to the division. Able to get a draw against one of the stronger coaches. Showing that he is definitely still in it, although he did suffer a death. But that he's still got those Blood Bowl skills. That's going to do it for the matchups. The actual leaderboard as it stands, and again, a couple games have already been played. It's REL 1 we're talking about. Almost all the games for Week 2 have been played. But with no 2-0 victories, or 2 wins and no loss teams here, it's actually very close, which is kind of what we expect from REL 1. Teams have been always pretty consistently close. There might be 1 or 2 teams that break out, but at least for the first half of the season, I would expect there to be pretty much 2-game, 3-game spread at most. And the 2 teams that we're going to cover today from Division 1 are the New Day Co-op and the Saskatoon Shiners. Let's go ahead and jump into the New Day Co-op first. The reason why I picked them first is they're the team that I'm probably least familiar with because they did take last season off. And I just kind of, again, want to take a second look at really what they've got. It's extremely lean for what it is, a Chaos team with, how many games played? 45, 50, 58 games played. I would say that is a pretty lean team for that. No doubt they've suffered their losses and setbacks and such, but to really still have 4 Chaos Warriors, 3 of which with block and guard, and then one of them's killer, blodge piece as well. That's close to leveling up to get that stand firm. That'll be great for him. I assume that's going to be stand firm next. At least that's what I would get, especially if you've got the blodge piece. And the killer, as we know, Marlowe Smashfield, he does work. Plenty of work for this team, and he's not even usually the first blitz threat. The blitz is typically done by Weebay. Claw Mighty Blow Tackle, but puts in plenty of work. Main ball carrier, of course, is Bodhi, who's also well on his way to getting legend status. And he can certainly use that skill, so I think it might be worth scoring plenty on him just to go for that, because he would definitely get value out of that. Prop Joe, Rackle piece. The minus agility does hurt on a piece like that, but you still, as a Chaos team, can't really afford to cycle that. At least till you get Snoop up and running and ready to go. So yeah, nice lean Chaos team with just about everything that they need. Anything more than that, and they're going to start getting up there in value. The other team we said we were covering is the Saskatoon Shiners. Up on over there. And main star player, I mean, this team has several stars, I would say. Mickey Mouse, Storm Vermin, doing quite well for himself. And very durable. It's really tough to get your Storm Vermin this high of level in SPP. But everything he needs. Got the palm, he's got the tackle. The only thing I guess he doesn't have that he could use would be the claw. But Spike the Third does have claw, palm, tackle. So with grab and Juggernaut, that's going to assist with those one-turn attempts. I like that. Basically, it means that if there is a stand firm piece on the line, you can at least get that one block that you need. However, he doesn't have a sprint gutter, so really he needs 2 blocks in order to get that one turn. But that should still help quite a bit, being able to move a piece that he needs to. For the last level on this one, I'm curious if he might consider getting something like Frenzy or Dauntless. Something to mix up the skills between these two. I don't think he needs a second Juggernaut, but I'm curious to see what he ends up getting, so long as Spike does live to see his next level. Speedy Gonzalez, the Strength Up Gutter. Definitely a valuable piece on this team. Although it doesn't look like he's the primary ball carrier. That's probably Minnie Mouse Jr. But Speedy Gonzalez still is going to do plenty of work on defense. Being the blodge tackle, diving tackle, sidestep piece. As long as he gets near the ball carrier, he is a threat that you have to deal with. So really like that piece. The fact that you get the strength up at the end of that is just interesting too. That's a development that he probably didn't expect, but it really fits in line with everything that he got up to that point, making him just an ultimate defensive gutter runner that you really gotta like. And then the other 2 gutter runners, it's hard to complain about either. They've got Wrestle Strip Ball, so they are also going to be all over the ball carrier. You know, it's unfortunate that you don't have any guard on the team. Sometimes that can make a big difference for a Skaven team. Maybe look to see if you can get any doubles along the way, but otherwise, I mean, lineman with no bloat, that's always nice. 1700 TV for all the skills that you got. I think that's another very lean team that we've got here. So couple lean mutation access teams doing great things in Division 1. Both of them could be poised to do well this season and make the playoffs, and who knows, maybe take the whole thing. So after reviewing those teams, let's go ahead and take a look at the upcoming matches. Again, these are going to be ones that I went all the way back to REBBL, didn't I? One too far. Always do that. We're always going to try and talk about ones that have not been played. So the two that we're going to take a look at are Men in Tights and New Day Co-op. In this one, I am going to take New Day Co-op to win this. But it really will be a test to see how Kool-Aid can handle the agility team. Ice Mike's, control team is something that I think Chaos is going to tend to do well against. This is going to be more of a real fire versus water kind of situation where I think the Wood Elf team is going to have the best chance of getting a win against this kind of Chaos team. But he's not going to have as many inducements as he used to on Men in Tights either. So that could definitely be a factor. In fact, let me just double check. Yeah, so it's going to be... it's still a decent amount. So about 350 in inducements, but compared to Sace's team, where he's going to have all of the inducements he could possibly want, it's going to be a little bit trimmer match. And so after playing Sace and losing, I think that New Day Co-op is still going to have what he needs to win this one. The other match that we want to take a look at and talk about is Gloom and Zoom versus Eat Man Things. Interested to see if NPA can bounce back after a just brutal loss against the Cheese Tactics Orc team. Gloom and Zoom came off a good victory as well. So the Skaven team, I think, are something that you can just play your best and still lose to because of that natural one-turner threat. So we'll see how the dice shake out, and if Fiction is able to either just dominate with removals like Cheese did, or if it's really just the Skaven shaking off the rough REL1 welcome. So that is going to do it for Division 1, but the last thing that we're going to take a look at is something that I have not covered yet. Up here. Nope, not that one either. Well, there's that. So the TV plot chart, or graph, or whatever you want to call it, for the 3 divisions. And so the starting points that we've got are the start of Season 6, Week 13 of Season 6, and then we're going to kind of go on from Week 1 and 2 from there. So starting with the REL Div 3, a lot of growth through last season, obviously, for these teams. A lot of these teams are fresh roll teams as well. You can see a couple here that have just always been up at the top. Cenobite the Curb, Chaos team. They're at that point where they've just got a lot of team value, and a lot of the points are going to go on ones that have already kind of reached level 4, level 5. So their overall growth has kind of slowed quite a bit. We're going to set trend across most Chaos teams. One that's really quite, shot up and kind of kept going is, let me click that one. The Necromantic Newbies. They really stumbled out of the gate last season and took a while to get any kind of development at all. It was very slow going for them, and now they've really perked up and right in the middle of the pack here. Quite a close competition between the teams in team value range. It's really not that spread out and diverse in Div 3, and I think that's mostly because of the way the seeding was just done. These teams tend to have pretty close team values. Currently, right now, 1340 is the lowest with the big green weenies, and that's because they've got a couple missing next game Black Orcs. Up at the high end of the things, we've got Dimension C137 to 1800, and I believe Cenobite the Curb is also at that same mark. So those are definitely on the higher side of things, but an overall small gap between the two, roughly 500 TV. Division 2, things are a bit more spread out. At the low end here, we've got Treat Kundo, who's, really a team of 5 people with a whole bunch of loners. So they're just playing that inducement game along the way. Kind of on the upswing is Ace Trucking Company, especially now that they've got their blocker back. But they had to dump a lot of cash to replace some hobgoblins. So if they were to suffer more losses, we could see them start to swing back down. And all over the place here is Fruity Kisses, who we mentioned had sold off a bunch of players, so that's why they really have dropped from their week 13 high of 2100 TV. Also, kind of on the downtrend is Mainland Rotters. They've lost a couple, I believe just Rotters, so nothing too valuable. They're also going to be missing their Strength 6 Freak next week. And even more spread in team value is Division 1, where we've got Eat Man Things at 1300 and the Animal Farm at 2070. So we're going to continue to track the team values of the teams as we go through the weeks, see if there's any crazy shakeups in numbers. I may decide to treat it like a Mad Money stock market kind of show thing. Add a little bit of humor to the cast and the recaps. Buy your Necronomics or buy your Eat Man Things now, or sell actually, because they're kind of crashing and who knows what they're going to do. But maybe I would probably short Animal Farm. I think it's going to be hard for them with spiraling expenses to get much higher in team value without having to get some removals, some permanent damage to that team as well. So they're going to be facing a lot of claw. Even though they've got the claw themselves, eventually they're going to have to get trimmed at some point. So New Year Norse also is another one that I would short in the near term. Just in 2 weeks, they've already dropped 200 team value, but it's still AV7. There's a long way to go. That's going to go ahead and do it for this episode. Thank you guys for watching. Good luck with your week 2 games. Some of you may even be on the week 3 by the time we do the next episode. But either way, we will cover all of week 2 next week. See you then.